everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about The Billionaire's Nanny by Elizabeth Maddery. So, this one is a contemporary romance and it fits within the Christian fiction category, and it's book one in Elizabeth's Billionaires Next Door series. So, why did I want to read this one? Well, this is actually a reread for me from my keeper shelf. It's one of my favourite books from Elizabeth Maddery, and I've been a fan of her books for many years. So, I thought I'd pull out a favourite to read and tell you about it. So, you can find recommendations for this book and also other books in the series, including The Billionaire's Best Friend and The Billionaire's Backup, on my blog at my website at narelleatkins.com, and there'll be a link in the show notes. Now, I've also recorded episode 10 on the Easter in Gilead series, which includes one of Elizabeth Maddery's books, which is her Billionaire Benefactor, which has connected characters to The Billionaire's Nanny as well. So definitely go and check that episode. You can look that up in the playlists at YouTube or at your podcast app. So anyway, let's talk about the book. The Billionaire's Nanny by Elizabeth Maddery is set in Washington, D.C. So we're in the Old Town District part of D.C. And there are a number of romance tropes in this one. So from the title, you've probably guessed that this is a billionaire romance. So we have a billionaire hero. It's also a rags to riches story because we have our nanny who is a want-to-be Hollywood actor, and she's the leading lady in the story. We have an adorable 3-year-old boy, and we have a single dad who becomes the guardian for this 3-year-old boy. And the romance is friends to more in how it plays out. We have our characters working together because they're in an employer-employee relationship. And we have forced proximity because the nanny is living in to look after the little boy. So anyway, let's go to the first line, which is this one. I shifted on the couch, getting more comfortable. So we are introduced to Scott, who's our hero. He's our billionaire hero, although at this point in time, we're in the prologue and he's not a billionaire when we're actually reading about him. So we get an insight into his ordinary world. The baseball's on the TV in the background, and he really is just one of the guys. He doesn't have airs and graces. He's a very humble guy. So he's a software developer. And what happens in the prologue is that he and his friends invest some money in the stock market and hit the jackpot, and they all become billionaires. So chapter 1 starts 6 months later, which is after they've all made their riches and they're all billionaires. And we have Scott's mum, who has the whole billionaire thing has totally gone to her head. And she's been bragging about her amazing billionaire son to anyone that will listen, including her extended family. And what's happened is that Scott has a cousin who he's never met, that's related on his mum's side of the family, who lives in LA. And for whatever reason, she decided to change her will to say that if something happened to her, that Scott would become the guardian of her child. And of course, a terrible accident happens, and that will then comes into play, and Scott then discovers that he has custody of a 3-year-old that he's never met. And he's a single guy who's never thought about children in any way, shape, or form because he's single. And this, of course, is a major, major shock. And so we meet Beckett, who is the most adorable 3-year-old boy. And he's really in a bad situation in the sense that his mother has passed away tragically from an accident. His father is out of the picture. He's incarcerated and will be locked up for the next 20 odd years. So he is not a candidate to parent his son. And so that leaves Scott as the guardian of Beckett, according to Beckett's mother's will. So that introduces us to Whitney. So she's our leading lady. She's our wannabe Hollywood actor who is scraping by. She's got no money. She's got no money in the bank. She's driving a junker car. She's waitressing, working in retailing, doing whatever job she can around auditioning to try and get her big break. And of course, that elusive big break has not happened. Now, she was best friends with Beckett's mum and was babysitting Beckett all the time. So she really was like an aunt to Beckett, and she absolutely loves and adores him, and she's devastated by what's happened. And Whitney really wants to have custody of Beckett. She'd like to raise him as her son because she absolutely adores him, and they have quite a close bond, and she's really upset at the thought of Beckett being shipped off to some billionaire cousin on the other side of the country. So anyway, that brings us to our meet cute, and this is a dynamite meet cute. It's a very unusual one because the stakes are just so high in terms of what's going on, and it is beyond awkward for that very reason. So we have lots of drama because we have the handover of Beckett from Whitney to Scott at the airport in DC. So Whitney's able to wrangle her way into being the adult that accompanies Beckett as he flies from LA to DC. And she, in her mind, has decided that she's not letting go of him. Somehow she's going to convince the billionaire that she should be the one that has custody. And so at the airport, the meeting is incredibly tense because Scott has made a decision that he's going to raise Beckett and he's going to follow his cousin's wishes and be the guardian of Beckett. And so a whole lot of stuff happens, and the upshot is that Whitney ends up being the live-in nanny for Beckett with Scott. So that's where the story really kicks off from. And as you can imagine from what I've described in the Meet Cute, there are so many problems in this book. I mean, for Scott, it's a massive adjustment. He's still been adjusting to the fact that he's wealthy and he lives in a one-bedroom apartment, and there's a whole lot of changes that will have to happen to accommodate having Beckett in his life. And living with a 3-year-old is, yeah, becoming an instant dad was not something he'd ever really thought about. And then Whitney, of course, is now living on the other side of the country. She can't audition or follow her Hollywood dreams if she stays where she is. And she's working as a nanny, which is something she's never done before and never really thought about doing on the East Coast. So there's some major adjustment stuff going on, and their living arrangements are complicated. And I will add that there's no impropriety here. And I think that Elizabeth handled that very well in terms of how the story plays out. And we have, but all of our characters have a lot of emotional unbaggage to pack. We've got family drama, which adds a whole lot of complications. And we're also dealing with grief from the start of the story. So, of course, Beckett is grieving the loss of his mum, and Whitney's grieving the loss of her best friend. So, grief is an issue that gets addressed in the story. And I absolutely love this story, hence why it's on my keeper shelf and a reread for me. And the humble billionaire is definitely how I would describe Scott. He's just so unaffected by the wealth that has come his way. And it actually, 6 months, when we start chapter one, he doesn't live as if he's a billionaire at all. It's really quite interesting to see how the money in his bank account and the investments haven't affected him, but oh my goodness, have they affected his mother? So you see that in terms of the way his mother has reacted to the wealth that's come his way. And Whitney, she was just such a lovable character and a memorable character for all the right reasons. And I love going back into her headspace and spending time with her because she really was a character that you want to cheer for. You want to see her and end up in a really good place because she started from a difficult situation, and it was just lovely being journeying with her and Scott in the story. And their sweet friends to more romance with the adorable 3-year-old Beckett in the middle. It was lovely watching them become their own little family. And we've got sparks flying because the attraction is there from the get-go. And we've got this little family being created when you've got the two of them trying to keep their relationship strictly professional. He's the employer, she's the employee. And of course, that doesn't work the way they expect, and they become friends pretty quickly, and then everything goes from there. So it was just a lovely romance story arc. I really enjoyed it. And I also appreciated the guy friends group in the story. So this is trademark Elizabeth Maddery. If you've read her books, you'll know that she typically has a really strong group of male friends in her story that are very realistic, and I've always appreciate meeting the other guys who will become heroes in the future books in the series, which is also fun. So, my favorite book quote from the story is this one. I blew out a breath and offered up my disappointment and frustration to Jesus again, because I had to believe that I was here with Beckett for a reason. There was no possible explanation for how quickly and well things had worked out. So, as you've guessed, it's Whitney who's saying this, and actually, I should say, thinking this. about her life situation and what she's got herself into in DC. And I would describe this book as having strong and relevant faith elements because we really do see the characters living their faith on the page in the story. It's not a secondary thing. All the decisions they make and what they do, they actually think about how that they think about things from a faith perspective. The faith isn't just an added on thing into the story, it's very organic and a very significant part of the story. And grief and loss are issues that are dealt with, and of course, their faith factors into that. And we have the whole money and billionaire thing. And Scott started off the story from a position of having a very genuine and deep faith. And God blessed him with all this money, but it hasn't ruined him because money will often ruin people. And it also hasn't changed him and made him into a selfish, obnoxious person, which is the stereotype, I think, for billionaires. So he's not power hungry and he's using the money that God has blessed him with for God's good purposes. And I really appreciated seeing that side of him in the story because not all billionaires fit the stereotypes that we often think about. So, in terms of the impact on me, there were lots of smiles because this is a really fun story. There's some really fun moments in it. And there were also some poignant moments because we've been dealing with some pretty big issues and some hard things that happened during the story. And it also made me think about the whole billionaire thing as well, because I'm not naturally drawn to billionaire stories, but I will always read an Elizabeth Maddrey billionaire story because I know that her billionaires are going to be like the guy next door. They're not going to be full of themselves. They're not going to be power hungry and all of that kind of thing. And it was really interesting watching Whitney in the story because she had some very big preconceived ideas and she's been in Hollywood, so that makes perfect sense that she would expect a Hollywood style billionaire with all the excesses of wealth and everything. And that's not who Scott is. And so that made for some very fun moments in the story as she worked out that the life she thought she'd be walking into when she spontaneously accepts this nanny job is certainly not the way that this doesn't reflect reality. It was really interesting because in the pop culture, we see the power hungry billionaire, we see the narcissist that wants the immediate attention, and that is totally not Scott and not how he rolls. So, anyway, I recommend The Billionaire's Nanny to readers who like the humble billionaire with the nanny trope, to readers who like forced proximity with the main characters working together, to readers who like sweet friends to more romances that are a lot of fun, to readers who like the single dad trope where the single dad is the insta dad guardian, to readers who like adorable 3-year-olds and their main characters from different worlds. So, it is a rags to riches story with a twist, this one, because they both end up coming into wealth from very different places. And you'll enjoy this one if you like family drama and if you appreciate strong faith elements in your story with your characters that are actually living their faith on the page. Thanks for joining me today. Does The Billionaire's Nanny by Elizabeth Maddrey sound like a book that you'd like to read? Have you read it? What did you think? You can let me know. If you're listening on the podcast, you can send me a text via a link in the show notes. If you're watching at YouTube, you can like the episode at YouTube and or leave a comment at YouTube. And you can also email me at my website where I have a contact form and you'll find that at narelleatkins.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and you can do that at your favorite podcasting app or at YouTube and then you'll get a notification on when my next episode drops. And also, if you've enjoyed this episode, please share the link with a friend, especially a friend who likes reading contemporary Christian romance, who you think would enjoy reading Elizabeth Maddrey's books and likes reading the billionaire trope. So thanks for tuning in and see you next time.